I'm at the Bolton Socialist Club asking members about a plaque commemorating local Spanish Civil War volunteers, particularly James Alwyn.
Well, the plaque behind me came about because we have in Bolton an activist, Lisa Croft, who is a member of the International Brigade Memorial Trust. The organisation do a lot of research in terms of men and women who went and fought out in Spanish Civil War from 1936 to 1939. And what came out of some of that research was that we have a gentleman from Bolton, a James Alwyn, who went out to fight in the Spanish Civil War, and he lost his life at the Battle of Jarama in 1937. Now, these men and women who went out to fight were primarily working class men and women. Many of them were trade unionists, and the trade union movement at that time encouraged people and supported people to go out and fight for democracy against fascism.
My main interest is my grandfather was in International Brigade, Archie Williams. He'd been involved in a lot of anti-fascist activity in London, in Cable Street. He was part of the big demonstration there when the black shirts came and marched through. He was seen as an agitator, but he believed in a fairer way, and to see the way that people have been treated in Spain, you know, he wanted to join. My grandfather, he was in the Battle of Jarama. He was one of the machine gun fighters in number 2 battalion, and he was captured in February 1937, and my mum was actually born when he was in prison there, so he spent some time in one of Franco's jails. Him and his wife, my grandmother, they were actively involved in the Aid Spain movement, and Bolton itself was very supportive of the Aid Spain movement. In fact, they saved enough money to send an ambulance to Spain with full of equipment. So a lot of the northern towns, Wigan, Bolton, Preston, Blackburn, it was a difficult time then. People were very poor, but they still managed to save money to send to people who were a lot poorer than them.
What do we know about James Alwyn?
I've not been able to find a great deal about James, just his age, that he was a spinner and that he lived in Bolton. There were quite a few people in the town who did go to fight in Spain, and we wanted the plaque, particularly of James Alwyn, who died in Jarama, who was from Bolton. We have so many plaques throughout Britain, and we needed one for the memory of James, really. We had one of the Basque children who came of refuge during the Spanish Civil War. She's actually 90, in her 90s now. She lives in Bolton, Maria Louise Toole, and she unveiled the plaque for us, which was a great privilege.
She regaled us on the day with stories, some quite harrowing, of what she'd seen as a child out in Spain, but she reiterated how welcome she was made by the people of Bolton, and its relevance today in terms of what we see around the world with child refugees travelling across Europe trying to get to Britain, and a plea that must be maintained. These children need support, as she did when she was a young child travelling over from Spain. So it was a very emotional day. I was very lucky at that time because I had the honour of being the chair of the region of Unite, and I got fantastic support from the Union Unite regionally, local branches, and I was also the secretary of Bolton Trades Council. We got behind the campaign to get this plaque erected, which, as you can see behind me, we managed, and we're really proud of that.
Well, the international brigades were made up of volunteers from all over the world, really, but particularly in Europe and in England, young men and women volunteered to go out there and take up the fight. They were obviously politically aware, though many of them were trade unionists, although some weren't, but they understood what was at stake. And they were encouraged by various organisations, be it their trade unions or the Communist Party, not by the major political parties, particularly the Labour Party, weren't supportive of them going out there, but they went nevertheless, formed themselves into volunteer brigades, aligned themselves with the Spanish workers, and took on Franco and the fascists. The fight against fascism hasn't ended. It certainly raised its head in more recent years all around the world, all over Europe. We see the right wing coming back into power in some places like Hungary and in Turkey, the authoritarian governments, and the ADF in Germany. The policies of Trump and Johnson now, they're veering more and more towards authoritarianism. So we think the battle against fascism is ongoing. It never ends. I think it's endemic in any capitalist regime. So that struggle goes on. So there's enormous lessons to be learned from that period of 1936, well, the whole interwar period really, but particularly 1936. And it's good that we're able to honour the people who understood what was going on, what was at stake, and went out and in many cases, like James Alwyn, gave their life.